Welcome, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to get started with some introductions, and I guess I'll go first. My name is Patrick Phelan. I'm the Associate Dean for Graduate Programs in Engineering. I'm also a professor of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. Welcome very much. And I'll go next to my colleague, Arzuhan.
Hi, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Arzan Kavak. I am a senior coordinator with our outreach and recruitment division, and I mainly work with graduate students. And we'll go next to Roshan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roshan. I work as the enrollment advisor for graduate programs. I basically work with the International Admission Services. Thank you for joining us.
And is Nikki here today? Maybe not.
Not yet, maybe later.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. Okay. So Nikki, I think if she joins, you'll hear from her later on. All right. Let's go to Arzuhan for the next several slides, please.
So before we talk about our university and our college, we would like to first talk about where we're located, right? So we are at a fantastic location. Phoenix or Greater Phoenix area is not only a good place to study, but it's also a good place to live and work and make a life for yourself. It's a vibrant city, it's large, it has a lot of natural beauty. If you were to drive a couple hours, you would hit the mountains and where it snows, you could ski. We are in the desert, but it's not like it's not like the Saharan desert. It's very green actually for a desert and lots of opportunities for you to hike and all that. And our campus, the picture in the middle is from one of our campuses. It's the Tempe campus, and all our campuses are very beautiful and each have different flavors, but we each have beautiful campuses. Next slide, please. So where we are located? Well, we are located in the southwestern portion of the United States. Within the Greater Phoenix area, Arizona State University has multiple campuses, 4 campuses, and online presence to be exact. And Fulton Schools of Engineering has presence in 3 of those campuses, the Tempe campus, West Valley campus, and Polytechnic campus. We currently have graduate programs only in Polytechnic campus and Tempe. Now, the way where we are located makes us very accessible. There are international flights in and out of Phoenix Airport, direct flights to Paris, direct flights to London, multiple Mexican destinations to Canada. We're also a couple hours flight from the Silicon Valley, about 4 hours from the East Coast of the United States. Next slide, please. So when I was talking about Phoenix and when I mentioned that it was a vibrant city, it is actually the 5th largest city in the United States. This changes. Sometimes we're the 4th, sometimes we're the 5th. Houston and Phoenix always fights over this spot. But we are a very large, very metropolitan, very international city. We are also a major technical hub. We created more than 64,000 new jobs in Arizona last year. We are Mesa and Phoenix, which Mesa is a suburb of Phoenix, is in the top 3 cities for economic growth. We are also #1 in manufacturing growth, as well as a big semiconductor manufacturing hub where there is more than $65 billion in semiconductor investments since 2020. Next slide, please. So talking about semiconductors, where we are located as a university, we are very strategically located right in the middle of 2 major semiconductor manufacturers. Intel, who's been in the Greater Phoenix area for decades, is practically in our backyard, very close, and they employ a lot of our graduates as like as interns as well as after they graduate. But in the north side of city of Phoenix, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has been building fabs to manufacture. I've seen their manufacturing plant, the first one recently, and it looks incredible. So this puts us in a very unique space in the manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing. So we are very strategically located, and we have a lot of research related to semiconductors and great relationships with these two major manufacturers. Next slide, please. So this is our charter. We are repeatedly ranked #1 in innovation, sustainability, and global impact. But we are a public research university, but we measure our success with how inclusive we are. We try to accommodate every student who would like to do a undergraduate or graduate work if they are qualified, if they're eligible, and we take a big pride in this. And this ASU charter is very dear to everybody who works or somehow connected with ASU. Next one. So you kept hearing me talk about Fulton Schools of Engineering. We are indeed like an engineering college, and we have multiple schools within the college. Our dean is Dean Dr. Kyle Squires. He is a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering. Within our under the Fulton Schools of Engineering, we have 8 schools. These schools are structured in a way that they cluster or combine this similar enough degrees under the same school. Depending on your program, you would be housed in one of these schools. Whether it is, if you're mechanical engineering, you'll be in school for engineering of matter, transport, and energy. If you are a computing discipline student, you'll be in School of Computing and Augmented Intelligence. Electrical engineers will be in the Electrical and Computer Engineering School. Depending on your school, you will either be taking your courses in the Polytechnic campus or in our Tempe campus. Next slide, please. So a little bit of numbers about our school. We are the largest and most comprehensive engineering school in the nation. We offer more than 50 graduate programs, more than 25 undergraduate programs. What is very important to our students is, out of all these numbers, is I think the fact that how diverse we are, whether we're talking about underrepresented students, international students, or female students, as well as the research expenditures. We have more than $145 million in research money coming last fiscal year, and this comes back as opportunities for our students at the end. And another number that you should be aware is more than 77,000 alumni. That means that our name is well recognized in the workplace. It is well-respected engineering college, and those are immediate connections when it's time for you to look for an internship or a full-time job offer. Next one, please.
All right, and thank you very much. I think I'll take over from here. We have a few more slides, and then again, encourage you to put your questions into the Q&A feature at the bottom, and we're going to get to as many of those questions as possible. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about research. So Arzan mentioned more than $145 million just last year in research funding, and most of that money goes to support students. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but we have lots of opportunities for you to engage in research. Whether you're an undergraduate student, we have our FURY program, Fulton Undergraduate Research Initiative. At the master's level, we have master's opportunity for research and engineering, or what's called the MORE program. We have Grand Challenges Scholars, and we also have something called the SURI program, the Summer Research Initiative. And so you can read about all of those at the Forge website, shown down below. So we have other resources as well. So I've already been talking about research, all right? We have a dedicated career center that's just for engineering students. And this is in addition to the career center for the campus at large. And so every semester they host career fairs. They give you personalized job support. They can help tailor your resume. They can help you train or practice for interviews. These are very important things that you should take advantage of. We encourage all of our students to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so let's say you're thinking about starting an organization, starting your own business, starting your own nonprofit. We give you some support. There are ways to compete for funding. And this is pretty significant funding, say $20,000, even $100,000, and give you access to mentors. And of course, beyond the classroom, we want you to get involved in every way possible while you're here. For instance, through the EPICS program, Engineering Projects for Community Service, to get involved in student orgs or student government, all of these things. Now, a question that I'm sure many of you had, and I already see these in the Q&A function, right? Naturally, you're wondering, well, how do I finance this? Okay, it's the same question I asked when I started graduate school. Okay, so it turns out 3 out of 4 of the grad students that we have in engineering have, one of those types of support, and in some cases, multiple types. So the first type, the type that everybody wants the most, all right, would be either teaching assistantships or a research assistantship. In other words, a TA or RA. These are mostly for PhD students. All right, so if you're coming in as a PhD student, then you have a good chance of getting one of those. All right, if you're coming in as a master's student, especially during the first semester, you have very, very little chance of getting a TA or RA. So what I would recommend, if you're coming in as if you're coming in as a master's level student, you need to come here, you need to start taking classes, you need to start meeting professors, because that's going to be the key thing, is that you have to stand out to faculty. All right. So what happens, and I have this going on, in my own laboratory, right? I have a student, let's say, who takes a course with me during their first semester here. They really stand out. They get to know me. They come to my office hours. All right. So we get a chance to talk. I get to know him or her, and he or she gets to know me. All right. Turns out we find out we have mutual interest, okay, in research. And sometimes that leads to some kind of support. Now, whether that's a research assistantship that provides full tuition benefits, that happens occasionally, but not often, okay? But it also could translate into hourly support to do research as well. That's also quite common at the master's level. But again, not in the first semester. So don't expect that coming in. And most of these positions, again, the TA and RA positions are really meant for PhD level students. Now, we also offer a number of fellowships, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute, but also we have a lot of on-campus jobs. So these are hourly positions. The pay starts at around $14 an hour. Okay, so it's pretty well paid. As international students in particular can work up to 20 hours per week during the semesters and up to 40 hours per week during the summer and Christmas breaks. And so some of these jobs are administrative, but some, like I mentioned above, are actually research oriented. So about fellowships, we have a fellowships portal in engineering. So we offer some fellowships from engineering. Now, some other fellowships are offered to you through the university, and the university ones, you don't have to do anything to be considered for those. But to be considered for an engineering fellowship, you have to apply. And so our engineering fellowship portal, it says it's open. I don't think it's actually open yet, but it will be open in the early spring. Okay. And so you need to put in an application, and you can apply for this every year. So it's not just for incoming students, it's also for continuing students as well. And most of these engineering fellowships, I should warn you, they're not very large, right? So mostly we're talking fellowships on the order of maybe $1,000. I think the max I've seen is about $5,000, but there are quite a few of those. And you can see last year we awarded about 400 of these fellowships. Now, on-campus jobs, as I mentioned before, are pretty common. And so there are a lot of on-campus jobs available. So maybe that's working as a grader. I see here research aid. That's what I mean. You're actually working in a laboratory or in a computer lab, but there are also tutors. There are various administrative functions as well. So it's a great way to pay for some of your expenses. And again, all students can work up to 20 hours per week during the semesters, and full-time, meaning up to 40 hours per week during the summer and Christmas breaks. Now, how about outcomes for our graduates? So this is kind of a general outcome in terms of employment for graduate engineering students from ASU. So you can see here the median full-time salary just shy of $100,000 per year. But a little over 80% of our students were able to find a job within 90 days of graduation. About 6% went on to, say, a PhD or a professional type of degree. And where did these students end up? Where did our graduates end up? So you can see the industries down at the lower left-hand corner. So a lot ended up, of course, in the software field, but electronics, meaning semiconductors, that's an increasingly important area. And we already sent a lot of students, like Arzahan mentioned, to Intel and increasingly to TSMC. Others go into construction, right? Higher education, meaning especially our PhD graduates, they go on to faculty positions at times. And so on the upper right-hand corner, you can see where they end up. So about a third remain here in Arizona, but a significant fraction go to California, to other states, especially the state of Washington and the state of Texas. Those are two big destinations for our students. And of course, some leave the United States and go abroad, about 9%. And then finally, the featured employers. You'll recognize most of those names, I suspect. So quite a few, again, in the semiconductor world, but also generally in the high-tech world, some in the financial world as well. So I mentioned about the Career Center. And so this is what the Career Center can do for you. And it's very important that you take advantage of this while you're here, because say, making your CV, your resume as good as it can be, becoming a great interviewer or interviewee, I should say, that's also very, very important, right? And of course, on the left-hand side, this is showing students meeting potential employers at one of our career fairs. So as an international student, let's just say, if assuming you're an international student, of course, to do an internship, that means you have to get CPT or curricular practical training. So internships, some people call them co-ops, all right? It's the same thing. All right, you're eligible as an international student after one academic year. So in other words, if you start in the fall, that means the following summer 2026 in this case, you would be eligible to do an internship. And so during the summer, you can do a full-time internship anywhere in the United States. And so you can see here, our students have ended up at a variety of companies. And so you can read more about CPT, OPT. OPT is optional practical training, and that's what you get after you graduate. You can read more about it at that website below. But let's talk specifically now about internships, and specifically internships for our international graduate engineering students. So this shows you some of our track record in terms of the number of internships our international engineering graduate students have gotten over the years. And in the lower right-hand corner, you can see, well, last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, were really boom years for internships. So we really had all-time highs. And this is per year, right? Something like 1,600 students per year got internships. That's great. Now, 2024 is not going to be as good, okay? But this is data. This graph shows you just through the end of June, and we're already more than 800 of internships for our international students. And so that number is going to grow, and probably, let's say it maxes out at 1,000 or so. So we're not going to quite get to the level of the last 2 years, but you can see we're still on a very good pace. And so this is the number of internships specifically for our international graduate engineering students. Now, on the left-hand side, this gives you an idea of where these students end up. And indeed, many go to Intel, but Amazon, okay, is not terribly far behind. A lot end up in Tesla. We have some in Apple and Google, other semiconductor firms such as NVIDIA, all right? So our students end up in a lot of different places for their internships. So finally, in terms of OPT, or where our international graduates end up after graduation, as I mentioned, a lot end up in Arizona. Okay, so you can see the numbers there, but a significant fraction end up in California, places like Silicon Valley, maybe in the LA area. The state of Washington is also very important. Oregon, Texas, I mentioned before, but really you can see most states are represented here. Michigan, all right, the car industry. Pennsylvania, I had one of my own students recently take a job in Pennsylvania. Ohio, Georgia, Florida. So many different states across the United States. So a little bit about jobs outlook. that might be something you're wondering about because that's top of mind. Okay, this is data from the U.S. government, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so this is not just for ASU, of course. This is for nationwide in the United States. And so projected job growth is pretty good. And then many of our occupations that our students are taking, such as data science, of course, software, all right, that's going through a little bit ups and downs now, but still the outlook in general is very good. But other kinds of engineers are also very promising as well. My own field, mechanical engineering, right? 10% growth rate over a 10-year period. Industrial engineers, 12% growth rate. Electrical engineers, 5% growth rate. And you can see the salaries on the right-hand side here. Now, in closing, we're going to give you lots of opportunities to ask us questions. And so you've already met Roshan. So that is her contact information there. And that telephone number, that's also a WhatsApp number. So you're welcome to take a snapshot of this real quick. Nikki is another one of our recruiters. She leads the team, actually, also based in India. So that is her contact information there. There's an email at the lower left-hand corner, gograd@asu.edu. And so we'll answer any questions that get there. So it'll get routed to us. And so you're welcome to ask us questions as well. And of course, on the right-hand side, we're showing our championship cricket team. And so something we're also very proud of as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And so if you want to take an image of this, do it real quick. And I'm going to stop sharing. And we're now going to go to our questions and answers.
So there are some general questions that I'm seeing, so maybe I can just answer those in general, if that's okay. Like one repeating question is the decision timeline. Now, we do hope to provide a decision within 2 to 3 weeks. However, some programs like construction management, which is civil engineering construction management, as well as mechanical engineering program, aerospace, has not started reviewing their applications yet. They wait for the application deadline. I've been talking to them while during the presentation, and they told me that they're going to start reviewing them next week for these two programs. That's one of, and then electrical engineering also the same way. They have not started reviewing. So is the computer engineering EE. So this is the update on those. Hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you should start hearing decisions on those programs. The other common question I've been seeing is regarding the data science concentrations that you have been admitted to. Now, they're asking how to change your concentration. Each concentration requires a separate application. If you applied to the concentration you wanted, but you were admitted to another concentration, that means that your application profile was not a good fit for the concentration you applied, so you were admitted to another concentration where you are a better fit. Unfortunately, there's no way of changing that decision now. Now, if you come here, you start, take a semester of classes, and then reapply, that I don't know. That is a possibility. Of course, admission is never guaranteed. However, but if you haven't applied to the right concentration and you've changed your mind since you applied, then you can submit another concentration and try for the concentration that you want. Okay, so those are the two common questions that.
So I see a question here I want to take. It's about, can you give statistics on the intake this fall, such as percentage of international students, their breakdown, how many domestic intakes, et cetera? Great question. We don't know the answer, right? Because we actually don't set any criteria or limits to who can apply and who can get admitted, right? So basically, our goal is to admit qualified applicants. All right. Now it's up to each program to determine, what that means for them, right? So different programs do have different criteria in determining qualifications, right? But we don't have upper limits on the number of students who get admitted. And so we don't say, well, we're only going to accept 100 students for this program. No, that's not the case. And we also don't say, well, out of those 100 students, we're only going to accept 30 international students. We don't do that either. Okay. So we're only going to know the answer to that question after the next fall semester begins. Good question. So I do see some more timing kind of questions.
I'm going to
I think that's been answered pretty much.
Yes, yes. There's also a question about the where to find the recording, and I will put the link where we put the webinar recordings, and then you can just search for the recording.
Arzu and Pat, I also see a lot of questions about documents like IELTS and LOR and the deadlines to submit these documents. So students, we don't have any deadline as such for, if you see these documents under your priority task on your My ASU portal, that means your application is still incomplete. So the review process will only happen once we receive your English proficiency test scores directly to ASU, as well as your letters of recommendations. We would not be able to review the application without these. So there is no deadline as such, but being an international student, we encourage you to upload these scores or send these scores as soon as possible so that your application is complete. Thank you.
So there is a question about two of our campuses where our graduate programs are. So I really want to talk about those campuses. First of all, while there is a physical distance between the campuses, we always consider each of our campuses as like the building next door. So they're just an extension we're just very much connected. Now, there is a regular shuttle service between the campuses every 15 minutes. When I say shuttle, these are really, really nice buses with, internet connections and all that. So we regularly ride these shuttles when we are going between the campuses as well. So regardless of which campus you are, you also have access to all the facilities at each campus. If you're at Polytechnic, but you want to work out in the Tempe gym, you're more than welcome to do that. So you are in Tempe campus, but you want to utilize the Polytechnic career services or Polytechnic libraries, you can do that. So it's now the different feeling, it is a different feeling between the campuses because the Polytechnic campus is going to be very serene, very calm. There's a lot of when you're walking around, you will see rabbits, and you would see these desert, like sort of a wildlife. It's beautiful. It is a little compared to Tempe. It's definitely a more calm and quieter campus. Having said that, Tempe on the other side is larger. It is busier and it's more urban. So some students prefer, this is more in the sense that in the undergraduate, as a graduate student, you really don't have a chance because if your program is offered in that campus, that's where you're going to be taking your courses. But some of our undergraduate students actually prefer to study in either of our Polytechnic campus or West Campus because they like that smaller environment while being in a large public university. So that's a very long way of saying they're both wonderful campuses. So I answered that one. So we answered that one. I think next is yours, Pat.
All right. So the question here is, can you provide information about the clubs and organizations available at the university? Great question. And so we have some organizations that are affiliated specifically with engineering. Okay. And in fact, I'm going to put that into the chat. Once I figure out how to do that, I'm going to put that into the chat. how to access that. And so there's a great website that you can use then to search for those organizations. Again, those that are affiliated specifically with engineering, such as, for example, there's a rocketry club if you're interested in building rockets. There is a SAE club, Society of Automotive Engineers, if you're interested in building cars. Let's see, there are computing clubs. There's one specifically for women in computing, for example. There are also a number of clubs associated with professional organizations, and those are particularly important, I think, for our students, such as IEEE, for example, the student chapter, or ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the student chapter. Those are great ways to get involved in the professional side of your degrees, and even more importantly, to get to meet practicing engineers outside of campus. So I urge you to take a look at those. There are also many associations for students that are more sort of personal. It could be based upon where you're coming from. So for instance, there's a very thriving Indian Students Association organization here at ASU, but also from other countries as well. There's a very thriving, for instance, a Korean Students Association. So we have a lot of those kinds of organizations as well. So there are lots of ways for you to get involved, and we definitely encourage you to do so. All right, I think I got the next one too. So it says, while reviewing the research initiatives at ASU, I came across work done in the space domain. So I'm from the CS background. I want to know if there are opportunities for grad students to work on such subjects with data science or artificial intelligence specialties. Great question. And so in addition to the Fulton Schools of Engineering, which is where we're all from, we also have another school at ASU called CC. That's the School for Earth and Space Exploration. There are a lot of links between engineering and the School of Earth and Space Exploration. And CC, as the name suggests, is actually where a lot of the space-related research at ASU takes place. For example, this is where they develop instruments that go on board satellites. So developing, say, IR spectroscopy, for example. All right. I've personally worked as a thesis chair for a number of master's students who ended up doing their master's thesis research on a spacecraft related topic. So in my case, because I work in heat transfer, that means it's something to do with the thermal side of managing a spacecraft, especially a deep spacecraft. So if that's your interest, I encourage you to check out the School of Earth and Space Exploration and then use that to try to investigate where you can get involved. Great question. There's some more administrative questions. I don't know if you want to take that next.
They don't need, Roshan, they do not need to send their official transcripts now, right? Unofficial transcripts should be enough to process their application.
Right. So all the students will have a chance to upload minimum 6 to 7 semester transcripts, your unofficial transcripts to the application while you're submitting the application. But once you submitted the application and you've missed out on uploading these transcripts, we will not be able to accept any transcripts from the students. Your college will have to send it to us directly at gradtranscripts@asu.edu. If admitted, you can get your official transcripts to the campus and also your final diploma or certificate. But for the application review, you can upload your unofficial transcripts.
There's a question about, can we learn cybersecurity with management subject? So I'm just going to end. I do not know what exactly, like I cannot speak about if you're talking about the business school because we are the engineering school. But if you are talking about the management of technology degree that we offer, now you can take, depending on your program, you can take at least 2 elective courses to be counted towards your degree. Now, of course, to be able to take these courses, you need to be you can take any course as an elective as long as it's approved by your department, with providing that you do have the necessary background to be able to take those courses. Like if you wanted to take a cybersecurity course in computer science, for example, and if you are a management of technology student, as long as the computer science program agrees that you have the necessary background to handle that course and your program approves it as an elective, you can take practically any graduate level course you want to towards your degree requirements.
And to add to that, information technology also has some good courses, I think, on cybersecurity.
That is true. That is true. I think the scholarships we talked about, and I think that's going to be.
Looks like I'm next. Now, the question here, and this is a very good question. Can we approach professors prior to joining the university after the admitted confirmation? Great question. All the faculty here, we get lots of emails, right? Lots and lots and lots of emails from incoming students, hopefully like yourself, okay? Now, you're welcome to do that, but don't expect an answer. And so don't be disappointed if you don't get an answer. Nothing, it doesn't hurt to do it, okay? It probably doesn't help very much either, to be honest with you, right? I'm trying to think of a situation in my own case where I've let's say an incoming master's student reached out to me, and then I ended up supporting the student or whatever. It's very, very rare, right? Very, very rare. So I think if nothing else, it's a great idea to start becoming familiar with the faculty and what they do for research before you arrive. Okay, so that's valuable. So that when you get to ASU, you don't start from scratch. You know who to approach. Maybe who to take classes from if you're really interested in that field. All right, so that's valuable. So I definitely encourage you to do that. And again, you're welcome to send emails before you get here, but don't expect an answer. And so don't be disappointed if you don't get an answer. Right? Great question.
I think, oh yeah. So the question is, if my application is rejected from some degree, does that get considered for other programs or I need to reapply to others again? So this is a very good question, and unfortunately, it's going to depend. For example, I'll give you the ones that your application will be reconsidered. If you've applied to a computer science master's program and your profile wasn't a good fit for computer science, you will be reconsidered for software engineering. That you do not have to reapply. If you have applied to a data science concentration and if it was not a good fit, then your application will be considered for other data science concentrations. Same with robotics and autonomous systems. However, if you applied to electrical engineering, and now you would like to apply to computer science, if you were rejected from electrical, you're not going to be reconsidered to computer science. So it's going to depend a lot on the program you applied. Now, if you want to ask me about specific degrees, please email us at, one of the emails that we provided, and I can put it here for us, Fulton Schools, so that we can specifically look at the degrees that you're interested in.
All right, I think, let's see, I've got the next one. So the next one is a very good question. I've applied for the MS in Mechanical Engineering with the goal to pursue a PhD in Mechanical Engineering. Does the Department of Mechanical Engineering offer pathway programs for MS students to matriculate into PhD programs? The answer is very much yes. All right, it's not uncommon at all, say, for a student to start at the master's level and say after one or at most maybe 2 semesters, then to transfer directly into the PhD. In other words, without stopping for the master's degree. And so usually that happens when the student meets a professor and the professor agrees to support the student as a PhD student. All right, this happens all the time. Okay, so definitely that's an opportunity for you. And in fact, one can apply directly for the PhD program from the bachelor's degree, right? So in other words, you don't have to get the master's degree first to apply for the PhD. You can apply directly for the PhD. But in your case, since you've already been applying for the master's level degree, great. All right, start. But then, really after you arrive at ASU, start talking with professors and finding out what they do for research. Some of this is luck. It's finding the professor who's doing something you're interested in and who has a project and is looking for a student to support. And so it's a matter of if you can meet at the right time in the right place, then it works out. And it's great for the professor as well, because when the professor has a grant, they really need to find a good student to work on it. And so they want to support a good student like yourself. And so it's a matter, again, of getting out there and meeting the right professor and who has a project who wants to support you, right? Good question.
Take out the next one because it's about the student worker jobs. First of all, I put the link in the chat where you can look at the student worker jobs. Now, of course, if you are a full 25 student, now it's too early to apply. You can apply maybe a month or so before you arrive on campus, because when we post a position, and we post a lot of student worker positions. I mean, in my office, we have about 7 or 8 student workers. A couple of them are international. So you want to, when we post a position, we need the student, right? So this is not the time. But maybe if it's about a month or before, you may be able to do a Zoom interview and still, start your job when you arrive on campus, or you can start applying once you arrive on campus. And you would do the search through the ASU employment site, and I put it there.
All right, I'll take the next one. Can you provide insights into ongoing research in your department, particularly in the areas of automotive and aerospace component design? I'm especially interested in innovations related to lightweight materials, propulsion systems, and advanced manufacturing technologies. Great question. Turns out there's a lot going on in all of these. And I should say not only in mechanical engineering, but especially at the Polytechnic campus as well. All right. And I urge you to consider faculty not only in mechanical engineering, but also in systems engineering. All right. And we have a new program in clean energy systems that faculty associated with that program as well. It turns out we have what's called a graduate faculty model. So faculty from different programs, if they're approved, can mentor or advise students in other programs. So in other words, there are many faculty at the Polytechnic campus who can advise mechanical engineering master's or PhD students, and they do that all the time. Okay, so for example, in the automotive field, we especially have a fair amount of work going on in EVs, electric vehicles, in different aspects. In one case, in controls, another case, say, in batteries for EVs, and also in the materials for them as well, especially at the Polytechnic campus. Now, lightweight materials, this crosses the board, especially in aerospace domain. So, of course, we have work going on in various kinds of composite materials for aerospace structures. And so you can find a lot of faculty doing that. And finally, advanced manufacturing. So for instance, such as laser-based manufacturing methods, we have work going on there. There's a lot of work both in the mechanical engineering as well, again, at the Polytechnic campus going on in additive manufacturing of various kinds. Okay, so really, if you take a look, I think you'll see a lot of interesting research going on that you'll like.
There's also a next couple questions. Are summer internships an option for MEng students? No, that is an online degree. So summer internships are only available for our in-person students. It comes as a benefit of your F1 visa. The next question is a CS PhD application. When should I expect the results? Usually, CS PhD applications they will start reviewing them after the new year. So, early decisions usually go up like towards the late January, early February is when you can apply the earliest decisions.
All right, I'll take the next one. What are the job opportunities after doing an MS in materials science from ASU? Another very good question. A lot of our materials students go off to the semiconductor industry. All right, not all. All right, but a lot of them do that. Okay, and so obviously related to the silicon processing, increasingly gallium arsenide or wide bandgap type materials. This is a very big outcome, let's say, for our material students, but they go off into other industries as well. I'm not as familiar with that as I probably should be, but that's about as good as answer as I can give you. So I do see we have a question about data science master's scholarship opportunities. They have the same scholarship opportunities that everybody else has, right? Data science, it's a great program because it crosses so many different departments, so many different fields, and all, Arzahan showed a slide earlier about all the different schools we have here within engineering, and data science crosses across almost all of those, right? So the students in data science have indeed the same opportunities as everybody else.
There's a question about, are we going into the details of the courses as well? Actually, this is a very good question. We are going to, we're going to be having these webinars every 2 weeks. So pretty soon we're going to be having discipline-specific webinars. That's where we will be talking about a specific program, the courses, the requirements, job opportunities for that particular program. So depending on your program, I would definitely attend those to find out specifically about your program. And of course, your advising offices are great resource. And in the websites, we have the handbooks for each program that tells you all the program requirements, all the courses, and so on and so forth. Can I get a mail ID contacting data science application status? I just heard from the data science that they have not started the fall 25 applications yet, but they're planning on starting very, very soon. So I can just, there's also another question. Should I submit official transcripts evaluated by third party? And the answer is no. We have our internal review process. Roshan, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. There's a question about the MS UX program. I think it's about 50 or 60 students.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Again, it's just School of Computing Informatics and Decision Systems Engineering. I would just first visit the,
Can you read the question
Oh, yeah.
completely?
As a student with an undergrad in computer and communication engineering and interested in research in computer science and medical field, please tell me more about ASU School of Computing Informatics and Decision Systems Engineering. I'm going to put the faculty list and their research areas. They do have faculty who is doing research in medical field, especially medical imaging and all that, both in the computer science and industrial engineering field. So you may want to read the faculty's profiles and read more about their research. But it is one of our largest schools, both in the undergraduate and the graduate side, and they have presence both in Tempe and Polytechnic campuses.
And if I could add to that, we have a really great relationship with the Mayo Clinic.
True.
All right. So you might have heard of the Mayo Clinic. It's one of the outstanding research hospitals in the world. And so Arzahan mentioned there are collaborations. There are actually centers, all right, that, for instance, led by industrial engineering faculty on imaging. And those centers are done collaboratively with the Mayo Clinic. So definitely do what Arzahan suggested. Take a look at the faculty there in our school and see if you like what you see.
It's also a question about what is the average batch size for software engineering and computer science. So I can talk about, I don't know how it's going to be fall 25. In fall 24, we had about 120 students in software engineering and about 450 students in computer science, give or take. I requested to defer my admission from spring 25 to fall 25, but the changes have not reflected on my profile. When I try to re-request, it states that deferred. That should be fine. If you email your ID to the general email that we provided, we're happy to look into it. But if you defer, then it should be fine. And then Russian maybe is that right? I think it should be fine if you deferred but just email me your ID and then we will look into it. I'm trying to. There's another question. There was no place for recommenders when I was applying for MS in computer science, cybersecurity. Are they required? No. Recommendations are not required for MS in computer science application. So you're good.
All right, I'll take the next question.
Yes.
And it says here, I've seen ASU is more involved in athletics and sports events like American football, but I haven't seen anything like the soccer team and the soccer field. Great question. Not one we get every day. Of course, we do have soccer teams, both men and women. All right, I believe we have those teams both at what we call the NCAA level. In other words, where they compete with other universities, other Division I universities in the United States. I think both men and women also have soccer club teams as well, which is, kind of one step down below the NCAA level. If you're a soccer enthusiast, especially a soccer player, I encourage you to check those out. You might be able to play as well at whatever level is appropriate for you. And of course, there are also intramural teams and things like that as well in soccer. So of course, soccer is also very popular. The next question is, do international students, are they provided a hostel facility on campus? And the answer generally is no, I'm afraid, right? So almost all, I would say 99% of our graduate students live off campus. Okay, so some kind of usually it's a shared apartment facility of some kind that they identify with some other fellow students. And so this is, depending on where you're coming from, this is one of the good reasons to get involved with one of the student organizations. For example, the Indian Students Association can be very helpful in helping you find a place to live if you happen to be from India. Okay, but there are many, many, many apartments, especially around the Tempe campus, where students live. And so almost everybody lives off campus.
Also, a general question from admitted students. And first of all, congratulations. We can't wait to meet you in fall. And the question is, what are the next steps? So the next steps are going to be two things that I know you guys do not enjoy doing that much. Any email communication you receive from your academic unit, as well as ASU, you need to read them very carefully and follow the instructions. There's also your priority tasks on your My ASU. From now on, your My ASU page is going to be your best friend. So you're going to work through those priorities and all that. And again, congratulations. And I don't know if Roshan has anything else to add to that, but that would be my advice for admitted students.
Well, it's also good to start preparing your I-20 documents because that would be your next step for uploading all your I-20 documents like passport, your financial guarantee form, and your bank documents.
All right, we're running out of time. So I'd say let's do two more questions. Okay. I have a couple here that are talking about, one is, it says, I'm from an electrical background. Can you please provide insight on interdisciplinary opportunities between electrical engineering and other fields like aerospace, robotics, etc.? And a similar question is there an active linkage between engineering and industry in the vicinity with respect to research collaboration and other goals of mutual interest? So I'll kind of combine those answers. One, electrical engineering pervades many other fields. To give you one example, there's a large research center called EPIC-C, Electrified Processes for Industry Without Carbon, that's funded by the US Department of Energy. Electrical engineering has very much a role in this because we're trying to electrify heating processes in industry, but there's lots of collaboration with people like me, mechanical engineering, with materials science, with construction engineering, with construction management. And so this is where just one example of how electrical engineering crosses boundaries. Another one is in semiconductor packaging, where electrical engineering has to collaborate with mechanical engineers, again, with material scientists to get the job done. Now, with respect to industry, the semiconductor industry is probably one of the best examples where actually ASU just won literally a $100 million grant from the U.S. government in semiconductors. And so this is ASU plus a number of very prominent semiconductor manufacturing firms. And so that's a great example of, yes, there are very deep and significant collaborations between ASU engineering and industry. Do we have one last question? That makes sense. That's a general question. I would say to emphasize again that in most cases, the applications, the review process is only now beginning, okay? And that's true in many programs. So if you haven't heard anything yet on your application, please be patient for a little bit longer, and you should be hearing about it very, very soon. And I think now is a good chance to close this. And we really thank you for attending today. And we'll do this again, all right, in a couple of weeks. And but in the meantime, you're welcome to ask us questions. I'm going to put back on the board again the last slide that I showed earlier. So in case you didn't see it before, this is the contact information. So that general email at the lower left-hand corner, gograd@asu.edu, you're welcome to use that, or you're welcome to reach out to either Roshan or Nikki, okay, at their contact information given here. And so with that, again, thank you very, very much. And we hope to see you here at ASU.
Thanks for joining. We'll see
Thank you, everyone.
in a couple weeks. Bye.